I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the roll call.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Here.
Mr. Kress?
Here.
Mr. Diaz is absent. Ms. Skim Parsons?
Here.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Here. All right. 2, hearing of the public. Do we have people that wish to speak today? Anybody? Okay. Then we're going to move on to the superintendent report.
Okay, so last week, as you know, we had to put out several unfortunate messages about remarks that students made where there was reference of harm or kidding about it or weapons. And so where the district falls on this is if we learn of such words being used by students, even in passing, if they don't intend anything by it, I mean, we're going to investigate that, and if we can confirm it, we're going to address it with consequences. So that's a situation from last week that we were able to confirm that those remarks were made in different contexts. The situations were separate from one another. There was really no connection among them. In situations like that, we also, the administration is trained to, and they have been trained to do these, they will always conduct a threat assessment. In every case, it was considered a low threat. And often, I think, students, just being human beings, when maybe kids are unkind to others, say things that, maybe there's a remark made that is especially hurtful to a student, and then that student will lash out with, something that is designed maybe to shock in the moment. So we've just run into kind of a rush of that in the past week or so. And so last Friday, I'm not sure about elementary, although the intent of the elementary administration was to at least touch base with 5th grade. But I can tell you that the middle school and the high school, every class, grades 6 through 12, Mr. Watson, Mr. Lane, and Mr. Firks were out in classrooms explaining what the expectation was. There were some students that had no idea what had happened. There were other students that had questions. They had clarification questions. Things that maybe the board office would be responsible for in terms of messaging, or what might happen in terms of consequences, the connection of law enforcement. All of those things were discussed class by class. They visited every room. So over the course of the morning on Friday, that happened across grades 6 through 12. In the elementary, again, I think the intent was, not sure if it happened last Friday, but the intent was to touch base with grade 5. It was felt by Mrs. Blankenship and Mrs. Lowe that grade 4 was not a concern, and that K3 the students were just too young to understand what was going on. So the message in those classrooms, I think, would be lost. Not sure how kids that young would receive it, but again, not sure about grade 5. Absolutely, grade 6 through 12. So potentially within the next day or two, I can confirm that every student was met with, grades 5 through 12. Understand the expectation, how this could be an issue with law enforcement, and also school consequences as well. So just to get that on the record, and I know that last meeting was just kind of a trial run in terms of live streaming our board meetings, but I mean, we had quite a few people tune into that. So if we have 300 plus people watching this evening, if there could be some reinforcement at home of the expectation at school, that those are just not words that we use, referencing weapons and threatening remarks, whether they're kidding or not, we just don't do that. So if we get information and we are able to investigate and confirm, then we're going to follow up with consequences, because obviously somebody might intend to be funny, but there are a lot of people that don't think that's funny. So, yeah, so that's the position of the district. And just to close the circle on all those messages that went out last week, I'm sure there were people that were surprised and discouraged by the number of those consecutively. So any questions from the board on that? Also, our elementary principal, Mrs. Blankenship, has planned kind of a grandparents' breakfast where grandparents are going to come in and read with their grandchildren. And at first we had thought maybe we could do a pancake breakfast for everybody, but we didn't want to run into the Rotary breakfast on November 1st, so we didn't want to compete with that. So we changed kind of the focus a little bit. And so the grandparents are going to come in, and we'll call the grandchildren down, and they'll be reading and having a donut, maybe some juice and some coffee together. But I thought that was a really nice thing. We are very surprised to have 165 grandparents RSVP. So that's pretty good for a first-time event. So more news to follow there. We're trying to figure out, we thought we were going to have that here in the media center. Based on all the folks that are here this evening, 165 folks here, plus the grandkids, probably not going to work. So we'll have to find another location in the building that day. But that's a great start and really great for a first-time event.
Brad, what was the date on that?
Oh man, I knew you were going to ask me that. I have to let me look on the building's social media feed, and I'll get back with you. It's this month. We didn't go into November. It is this month. And Katie and I, Mrs. Hartley and I, are going to do a little, kind of metaphorically, a little dance right now because she was going to make some remarks about professional development coming up later in the week, and also maybe a word or two about November as well. And so we want to give professional development and academics. We want to make sure that we elevate that as well. But there's been some discussion, I guess, social media, in the community, whatever, that somehow our athletic department, our athletic teams and programs are failing. And again, while maybe we have a captive audience who's watching this meeting be streamed, I think it's a good time to mention that maybe it's not the best fall season that we've had, but it's pretty close. Our football team's in the playoffs. I think they're seeded number 11 right now. Hopefully we get a win on Friday, but it seems like a playoff berth is sound right now. Our boys and girls cross-country team won the league. Our cross-country boys team qualified for regionals. We did have an individual qualifier for regionals as well on the girls' side. That is Aubrey Bates. Our girls' golf team won the league. Our boys and girls soccer teams are in the district semifinals. I think the girls are playing tonight against Miami East. They've lost, I think, both times they played Miami East this year, but they've been really competitive in those games. I think the last game was 1-0. It was late goal by the Vikings. But so we'll see how that goes. But they're playing this evening in the district semifinals as well. The girls, in fact, not everything is obviously calculated just yet. Is everything calculated? Okay, maybe not. But right now, the standings on the TRC website, the girls are a half a point behind Miami East in the all sports standings, so that's pretty good. Eric Galentine for girls golf, Todd Winchester for boys soccer, Amanda Higgins and Mike Meredith in cross country, all coaches of the year for the conference. I think our girls cross country middle schoolers won the league too, and we had a Milton-Union runner win the state junior high cross country. So, congratulations, Dr. Hinkleman. So,
It's all him.
so I think, we've had a really good run this fall. I don't know where that comes from. I think those students and coaches deserve to be celebrated. So I'm not sure why there's even a feeling that we wouldn't do that. Congratulations to all those students and staff members and coaches and laypersons that fill those positions for us. We appreciate that and congratulate them on their success. Let's see. I am going to pitch this now towards Mrs. Hartley. But we talked a little bit about college and career readiness. I think a couple meetings ago, we went over the local report card, and college career readiness component is not yet graded. It is kind of undergoing a revamping of how that component is calculated. So, but often this district, even though we don't have, there are districts in the county that we have some commonalities with, and there are other districts in the county that we have nothing in common with. But often our public tends to compare us to other school districts in the county. And to kind of give academics its due alongside of athletics, just to look at college career readiness for a moment. Let's tab over. And then I'm going to pitch this to Mrs. Hartley.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to steal any of your thunder because there's some really positive things here.
Absolutely. So this is the sixth component of the report card. We reviewed 5 of the ones that currently earn stars and have ratings and are calculated in our overall report. This is the component. We have had information on this for a few years, but as Dr. Ritchie said, it is undergoing some changes. Essentially, at this point, the state is approaching this from a perspective of there are 11 different ways that students, when they graduate, can show that they are ready for what's next for them. So the vision at Milton-Union Schools is that all of our students are thriving on their personal journey to success, and we really feel like these 11 options or 11 different ways that our students can show that they're ready for whatever that is for them that comes next is a great opportunity. You can see that the kind of overall percentage at the very top there, we were third from the top in the county. Behind Covington, they had 89.4% of their students who demonstrated readiness. Newton was second at 82, and then we were third at 78.6%. And essentially, the way that percentage is calculated is of these 11 different ways that students can show readiness, if students show at least readiness in one of those ways, they are ready. And so they take the number of students who met at least one of those 11 criteria and then divide by the total number of students in that graduating cohort. So I think a couple of the highlights for Milton-Union here, and there are many, is, we had 17.5% of our students who earned an honors diploma. We had nearly 24% of our students that earned an industry recognized credential. We had, I believe, the highest in the county at 44.4% of our students earned 12 or more dual enrollment credits. So we have a very strong, very rigorous College Credit Plus program. The one that kind of really jumped off the page at us as a point of pride was our ACT, SAT remediation free score. We had 31.7% of our students. We were second only to Tip City at 32.9. Essentially what this means is all of our 11th graders take the SAT in the spring. We do a school-wide SAT test. And this is the percentage of students who show through that SAT that they are ready to go to college and start college level mathematics without having to take remediation or remedial math courses before they enter college level math. Same thing for English composition. So their reading and writing skills also demonstrate that they are ready for success in college without any kind of remediation. So we're very, very happy with that score. Several others here. For a small school, I will go ahead and point out that at 4% of our students earning an AP score of 3 or better, and that has to be on 3 separate tests. That is not an easy feat for any student, but especially in a small district like this. You can see several of the districts in the county, they have 0%. Whether that's because they don't even offer 3 separate AP classes or they just don't have the students who are prepared to score that 3 or higher. We are very proud of that number of students who are able to do that on the AP tests. So quite a few highlights here. Again, we're very proud. We also feel very strongly that this is maybe not perfect, but a nice way for our kiddos as they leave us and enter the real world, if you will, for them to show that they are ready for that and to be successful. So we're pretty pleased.
Katie, what would a pre-apprenticeship
completion look like? Like,
So it's a specific program, so Piqua is probably this, I think they're the one in the county.
Yeah.
Yep, at 27.7. It's essentially a designed program. They do a lot of, so like Project Lead the Way and Rise Up and some different STEM things with their freshmen and sophomores that meet that component, but also help them establish maybe some career goals and some career pathways as they enter into their upper high school courses. We just maybe haven't done that yet. We also have a very high percentage of our students who choose, if they are specifically career bound, that choose to attend our CTC. At Piqua, that's a much smaller percentage, and so they do a lot more of that career piece and those career paths in-house. They do partner with the Career Center, but they have a lot more students who do that within their high school. So,
I know every year we've had like 2 to 4 that are going into the military. Why does it say 0?
so this is one of those things. Yeah, I think Piqua's the only one. We're not 100% sure why that's showing that. There is some lag time maybe in when that gets reported to the state of Ohio, and then from the state of Ohio gets reported back into our report card. So yeah, for sure, we know we have kids that entered the military, and so do many of those other districts. At a curriculum directors meeting at the county, everybody's like, be nice if that 0 was, wasn't 0, because we know we have students who have successfully enrolled and started in the military and started their service to the country.
This is for the class of 2023, right? This is the
Yes.
graduating
Yes.
class of 23.
Sorry, I always have to think about which group that was. Yes.
So we would love 31.7 to be higher. Sometimes we've brought these data to the board before, and we're like talking about where we are relative to the state average. And we did fine here, we didn't do so well here, that kind of thing. And we don't really have any context for you other than, what the scores were across the nation or across the state of Ohio. But this kind of lets you see, how are we keeping up with the Joneses here? And it seems to me that we are. And, that 31.7 could and should be higher, but relative to other schools in the county that we get compared to a lot, who supposedly are doing much better than us, I think this is nice to see. I also think and Miami East should be proud about this too, but that 43.6 and 44.4 for us for dual enrollment credit, that's a big deal. We've tied ours to a lot of our dual enrollment opportunities to AP. We have students that are not here, maybe high school kids that are taking College Credit Plus courses completely off campus. But we have a lot of kids that take advantage of the courses that are taught by our staff. And which really puts parents and families in the driver's seat on, maintaining an eye on how their kids are doing, right? So if kids are off experiencing college before they're ready for college, the professor or the instructor is not communicating with the parent and family. And sometimes it's a surprise when that student doesn't do so well. So that's a great opportunity. However kids are accessing College Credit Plus, not the least of which would be from our teachers, is a really great thing for families. And again, it's money in your pocket. So I think there's some things in here to be excited about and to build on moving forward. And hopefully we can see, these trends continue and maybe get a little bit better. So, any other questions from the board for either of us on that? I'll make sure Katie answers them.
Thanks.
No.
Professional development?
I was just going to mention, we have 2 professional development days coming up, October 25th, which is an end of the quarter day, and then November 5th, since the school serves as a polling location. And so I just wanted, the board and the community to be aware of all the different, not all teachers are going to get professional development in all of these, because we try to differentiate and customize PD based on teacher needs, maybe their current teaching assignment, and so there are going to be trainings on CPI, career pathways education, reading intervention. Grade level teams in the elementary are going to have time for math, science, and language arts pacing, implementation of what teachers have learned about the science of reading. There will be workshop time and professional development on written education plans for students identified as gifted. There's PD on our science fusion curriculum in grades 4 through 8. Our related arts teachers are going to have time, K-12, to work on vertical alignment of the related arts courses. There's ALICE training, which is safety protocol. Many of our intervention specialists are going to get training on transition plans for individualized education plans. The elementary is going to work on their building improvement plan. There's going to be time for our AP teachers to collaborate and work on FRQ work. There's PD on our middle school and high school math for those teachers, and then a session on meeting the needs of students identified gifted in visual and performing arts. So you can hear there's quite a bit. Again, not every teacher is going to participate in every one of these, but I kind of wanted the board and community to know the variety of PD that is going to be participated in by our teachers over the next couple weeks. We're excited to be able to do all that.
Last thing, I'll be done, I promise. Bulldogs, Books, and Breakfast. Thursday, October 24th. 9 to 10:30.
Oh, the
Okay.
All set? Yep.
All right, let's move on to 4 treasurers' report. A, approval of the Board of Education minutes, September 16th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Mrs. Brumbaugh.
Yes.
Mr. Kress.
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons.
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman.
Yes.
Motion passed 4-0.
B, approve the revised minutes for the August 19th, 2024 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Just a real quick comment on that. There was, you guys did approve the student-run credit union, and I mistakenly left it on the minutes that you guys approved. So we're reapproving those minutes with that included on there. Okay, Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Motion passed 4-0.
C, recommend approval of the September financial report.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, first I want to go through the financials from September. As you can see, we're running a little bit ahead of schedule, which is great, although we do have, this is compared to the 5-year forecast that you guys approved in May. So there will be some updates in November, so that third line down on each one of the sections will be changing a little bit. I know I've said it before, you know, the additional expenses that we've had with kiddos going to alternative placements, that's just a tangible example of, you know, kind of how this will start to change a little bit with updates in the forecast. So we'll go through some of the notes on here. I know I said in the last meeting, I wasn't sure, the general property tax was a little bit higher than what I had expected. But in looking at that, I talked to the folks at the county, and I know we talk about the development on top of the hill. Currently, none of the properties are on our tax roll yet, so they're still sitting within the 4-year abatement that we have going on. So I believe what I was looking at in the last month before I gave the report, I think I misspoke on the next line down, the 1.02, the PUP tax, which is the public utility personal property tax. It's 16.39% higher than forecasted what we had in May. So the PUP tax rose $2 million last year in 2023, but those are not released until late May, early June. So obviously it's not in time for the May forecast. So we've reflected that reflected that change within the November forecast. Income tax, I had mentioned last month, I had talked to Chris, who helps me with the forecast, to really take a deeper dive into kind of what was going on with this. During July of 2023, most of the school districts saw a decrease. Milton-Union was actually one of the few exceptions across the state. The statewide trends are showing growth, but we don't get the final collections until, we haven't received it yet. It'll come at the end of October. We think that it's going to stay within how we are projecting it for the entire fiscal year, but again, we'll know here come October what the trends are going to continue to be. Overall, for the general fund, revenues were 1.2% higher than budgeted on the May 2024 five-year forecast. Under expenditures, personnel services, which would be salaries, are 3.71% higher than budgeted. As I stated last month, there was a decrease from August's monthly reports because the reductions that had happened would start to come into play. The teacher's first pay is in September. Teachers and classified staff is the first pay in September. So we'll continue to watch this just to kind of see what's going on with that. Purchase services, we've talked about that, is a little bit higher due to some needs that we have had. Supplies and materials, I want to mention this, that it's $88,000 less than budgeted. This could be due to the fluctuations in payments from month to month, but I do anticipate us still needing those amounts throughout the year. So there'll be a little bit of a change in the forecast, but we're not going to decrease that. The budget for expenditures was 3.8% higher than what we projected on the May 2024 forecast. The district's ending cash balance was $6.6 million, or that should say higher. That's an error down there at the bottom. It should be 64/10 higher than what is forecasted. I will make that change. So then going into the investment summary. I took a little bit of a deeper dive. Usually the Star Ohio, which is the blue line down here, which is where we have a majority of our funds at, is starting to kind of come closer to the CDs and government bonds that we have with NBS. And I know I've kind of said it numerous times that we've been focusing on investing for shorter periods of time, which will then kind of increase the percentage yield that we will get out of those investments. So I took a deeper dive into that just to kind of see, and that's exactly, kind of what's going on, just to make sure we have that short-term cash flow should we need it if things get tighter than what we've got right now. Lunchroom expenses, the expenses exceeded revenues by just a little bit. That was the same trend back in September 2023. There was not much of a variance, but you can see back in September 22, the expenses exceeded the revenues as well. So that's on trend. And then, of course, all the checks that the district has that cut for the month. I would like to switch gears just real quick. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know Mr. Diaz, he's not here tonight, but he had asked me to, sorry for the flip-flopping. He had asked me to put up here a preliminary look of the five-year forecast that we are still working through. It's draft, but we are getting there. And I just wanted to share, I presented this at this is the exact same presentation, that we gave on Thursday at the School Finance 101. I just wanted to share.
Again, I got nothing for you.
Still screens sometimes.
There you go.
Okay, so this is a prettier look of the five-year forecast. You don't see all the lines and colors that are on the regular five-year forecast. We kind of simplified it a little bit more. So as you can see, again, I can't stress, this is a draft. The top line here is the total revenues for fiscal year, the actuals of '24, and then what's forecasted '25 through '29. If the levy does not pass, obviously this is going to remain zero. Total expenses are on this third line here. And what I think is one of two key principles about this is over under. How much are your expenditures exceeding your revenues? And you can see at the end of fiscal year 27, we are expected to deficit spend by almost $349,000 and higher as we go on out. And as you can see, this cash balance down here at on the very last line starts to diminish. While the district is still in the black at this point, one more year, I think it's one more year out, the 6th year, we're getting super, super close to having a negative cash balance. So this would be not very good for the district. We would have to look at further ways to scale things back even more than what we're already doing. Everybody's already working so hard out in the buildings. I've seen it in more ways than one. It would just be very beneficial. We could get the levy passed in November. It would help the district out significantly. This is the exact same graph. It's just the projections of what the passage of the 0.75% earned income tax that is 10 years. As you can see, things look much better. Going all the way to the bottom, sell with a cash balance of about $10 million.
I have a question.
Of course.
Have you, I know I asked this a lot, but have you ran this out 10 years?
We have preliminary data that's 10 years out.
Does it get us there?
Cash balance?
In the black, yeah.
I want to say we are in the black in the 9th year. 10th year, we're either close to being in the red or there. We do start to deficit spend at some point, I believe in year 7 of this. I can't say for sure which year that is, but when we discussed this, what we were going to put on the ballot, we knew this was a short term to see where we could get. We heard the community. The property tax is not where they wanted to go. We tried to reallocate the 1.25% that's already in place. We tried to reallocate that back in the spring. That was some fun PR.
Is your input for inflation at 4%? I know we upped it.
Depends on which line.
When I got on the board because I was hammering on Dave about it.
I know in the salaries, we factored in the 2% increase. It was either a 4 or 5% increase on like the supplies and materials. I can't say what we did for what the purchase services were on that particular line, but.
And revenues are pretty much maintained flat across the 10 years.
Yeah, not much growth there.
Okay.
When would we start collecting? Well, I guess I know we'd start collecting next year if it passed. How much would we collect next year estimated? Additional?
90,000.
Okay.
90,233. So if this passes in November, it would start to realistically be withheld from people's paychecks effective 1/1 of 25. Now, it's going to take a little bit for the ball to get rolling. Here's the start of it. A little bit more. We're playing catch up here, and this is what the Ohio Department of Taxation certified that based off of the demographics in the area and how much salaries come how many wages are coming, how much wages are coming in. That's what that additional 0.75 will generate.
So, in layman's terms, the reason to pass it now is to get ahead of the inflation that comes every year with everything, even at a low run rate of 3 or 4%. I mean, a couple years ago we were near double digits. So the more we delay, the worse the inflation keeps eating us, and the additional revenue takes a while to phase in. Because I know that's been asked why right now, and that's the basics of why it needs to pass now, so we can start the process of getting the full collection 2 years out, while the inflation never stops. I mean, let's be honest. So,
Yeah, they were predicting a recession back in the summer, July. It didn't make it. So,
But overall, I think this is more promising than I initially thought. That makes
gotta
me,
keep going.
I mean, even though we're still deficit spending, I feel like we'd be able to look at maybe bringing some back. Some of what was,
in this scenario, though, we're not deficit spending.
Yeah, there's no deficit
Oh.
spending on
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah,
We
so we-
deficit spent
We have some wiggle
in
room.
fiscal year '24. So there's no red. We're not deficit spending.
we're just never getting new revenues. Yeah. And 10 years out, likely the state funding will,
Oh, that's the other thing too, is, we're on a biennium budget. We have to forecast out 5 years, with a very large election coming up next month, so see how it goes. Any other questions?
No, but thank you for doing those two scenarios
Absolutely,
so the public can see.
absolutely.
I think it's good news. Well, it's better off than our forecast was for sure from last year, and maybe even a little better than anticipated if we can get it passed.
Yes, staff has been working really hard. I mean, him and I have seen it, Katie's seen it, Curtis has seen it. We've all seen how hard staff is working. Just don't want to get wore out.
I'd like to see what we can bring back if it passes.
Well, not to put anybody on the spot, but, before we shove off of this, is that a conversation that the board wants to engage in now? Like, talk about, potential, what comes back, or is that for a later day?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, in general.
I think if you look at the forecasted numbers, there would be room to bring back some of the essentials that we were forced to cut earlier this year. Nothing's guaranteed because I don't like to do guarantees, but I think we would start with high school busing and get the cost on that, which we're already working on, to bring that back. And then from there, you look at the radius of busing, because as you expand that radius, it requires more buses, more drivers. And if you flip and go back to a staggered start time, then that brings in more human capital to cover positions in the building. So there's pluses and minuses to both strategies. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think going back to the stagger start would probably be that's a big
It's a big financial.
financial
Yeah.
jump.
And how is it working out all on one bill schedule now that we've been doing it for a couple of months? Is it going well?
I hope Mrs. August is taking some mental notes right now, so when it's her turn, she can chime in on that. But I've heard a lot of positive about that. Probably the only real negative that I've heard from the community is that it's difficult for parents that work early. So, so parents of students in grades 6 through 12 that were used to bringing their kids earlier so they could get to work, they're having to struggle a little bit with the 8 o'clock, with the starting time being a little bit later. That's really not, there's not more, but that's the only thing that's gotten to me, and mostly people don't seem to mind it.
And what about the function as a school?
Well, if you don't need to drive by the school around 7:40 in the morning, or, 3 o'clock, 3:10 in the afternoon, you probably shouldn't. I mean, it's a pretty trafficy place, but it takes a lot of human resources to manage the process. Less so on the high school, middle school side. It takes a lot of folks making it work on the K-5 side of the building. But we stop traffic, we let the buses out. We stop traffic occasionally, let people turn right, to keep folks from getting backed up into the parking lot at the end of the day. But I mean, it takes a lot, but it's moving. It's good. We've talked before about this. We are scratching our heads a little bit about what to do if, I've heard we're supposed to have a mild winter, but I mean, where are we going to put the snow, when we plow? That's probably, it is an extra burden on staff to, either plow around those, barriers or move them and then plow and then put them back. So I don't know what that means. If that means more 2-hour delays, which I feel like parents and families don't love, or if it means we have to cancel because maybe the roads are okay, but we can't get our parking lots cleaned up enough. So that's something that we think about. If if this is something that's going to sustain long term and we have PI money, I mean, maybe there's another solution that we can look at moving forward. Going ahead and putting another entrance on this side near the tennis courts, or just west of the tennis courts, or perhaps a exit through Lowry, just to get traffic going in a lot of different directions to exit out of here, to enter and exit out of here. That might help improve the flow. But yeah, I mean, to your original question, how do people feel about it? I think pretty good. I mean, to say that with any kind of certainty, we'd have to put a questionnaire out to the community or something.
I think the other issue, though, with the busing is our difficulty in retaining bus drivers. Bringing back busing when we can't staff our current busing would be a barrier.
Yes. We were short bus drivers to begin the school year. We've had some folks make other decisions for their careers. There are some districts that have things like a 6-hour minimum. So if they might drive 2 or 3 hours, but they get paid for 6, and that would push them also into benefit status, full benefit status. So there are some districts that are doing some things to make sure they maintain bus drivers, or it's it looks like it would be lucrative for folks to work as bus drivers in some of those districts. If we do that, we probably never have to worry about bus drivers. Although I still stand by this. I mean, there are some jobs that folks, I mean, don't want to do. I mean, being a bus driver is hard. I mean, being an instructional aide is hard. I mean, so I mean, even if the rate of pay is higher, then I mean, there are folks that, I mean, sometimes people just don't. I know how this is going to sound. I love kids. Sometimes people just don't want to work with the kids. So that's a factor. But I mean, if there were things like a 6-hour minimum, or eligibility for benefits, that would make our district look more attractive to bus drivers. It would also be very expensive. So, I mean, it's a matter of how the board would like to take that. But you're right. I mean, bus drivers, there's shortages everywhere, and I think
we'd have to do something.
Generally, it's the feeling I get is people have just enough. We're a little bit south of just enough, but I mean, most districts that in the county, we've talked about this as a group of superintendents, and it's most everybody's in the same boat.
So no one wants to share?
No one wants to share, 100%. No one's sharing if they have substitute bus drivers, no one's sharing substitute bus drivers. Yeah.
So That kind of leads into another point I was going to make about the timing of getting the levy passed with November. It's not only the collection clock would begin on January 1st, but the other part of that is then we can make decisions on services to bring back, and if high school busing is one that we'd like to add, we would have time to get drivers or get drivers trained and to do the rerouting to get that going. And that is a question I had for you, Curtis. How many spares do we have right now, buses?
I believe it is 11. Try to keep.
No, I mean spares that are not in daily use.
Oh, 7, I believe. We just traded in, I think with our last trade-in, we traded in 4
So-
buses.
I guess let's get into another point. If we have the capacity right now to add a couple additional routes and drivers for the high school and reroute some things, but if that clock keeps going and we have in our capital budget to add a new bus, and we'll probably trade the older buses in, that capacity would be gone without going out and buying a newer used bus that would cost the district more money. Is that a fair assumption? Okay.
We try to, when we trade in, we don't always trade in the bus we're swapping out for the new bus. It just becomes a spare, and then we trade in the oldest bus that we have.
Right.
Or the bus that is causing us the most problems necessarily as repairs and so on and so forth. But, which is what we did with the current bus purchase. We had our spare special needs bus. It was a money pit nightmare. It was a flat nose bus. Not too many people work on them anymore. And the people that do want a lot of money to work on them just because they're so hard to get to the components to fix. But yeah, we have some good spare buses right now that we can utilize if this were to be something that the board wanted to do. But yeah, in the long term, yes.
Because I just wouldn't see keeping buses just sitting. I mean, we know vehicles don't do well when they sit and aren't driven. So at some point, as this gets longer out, you'd have to look at reducing that number.
And it does, I mean, it does happen. Sometimes it's just as simple as that bus needs service, and the time that it's being serviced, we need bus. So we're using a spare bus at that time. I think to start the year, at one time, we had 3 spare buses on the road because of issues with other buses. I think as of today, we may have 1. We had a bus have some issues today, exactly. So, but it's one of our older buses that is on a permanent route, so.
So Curtis, with that being said, you said we have 7 spare buses. Are they getting used like once a week just to keep them running? Okay.
Yep. Yep. We rotate them in just so they're not sitting.
Sitting there.
And, issues develop, as they said. So they do get worked into a rotation.
Well, if we had the funding, if we could do it, I really want to bring back some of the busing, whether it's high school or dropping the radius. I think that would require a lot of planning.
And I think your numbers are going to increase the riders. Currently right now, I'm sure we have several households that may have a high school student, but also have middle school or elementary. And while your middle school and your elementary qualify, your high school student doesn't, more than likely, those students are being parent self-transport or guardian transport. You're probably gonna, we're talking about adding a high school student, but more than likely, you're gonna add high school and siblings back to that mix. What that number is exactly, I mean, we can get that, but it won't, I don't believe it'll just be high school students. students. I think the need for a few more drivers or a few more routes would be.
And conversely, if it doesn't pass, maybe we get rid of a couple of the 7.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We don't get much for it. I will tell you, on trade-in.
I'm shocked.
I think I'm scared to know what you're doing this.
But if you
It's
go to
quite
buy a
shocking.
used one, it'll cost you more.
Yes. Yes. You're basically paying them to take it away.
Take a vote.
Um,
You don't have anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess on the flip side, if it doesn't pass, then I think we will have to, at least by May, discuss where we're gonna cut more. And then, unfortunately, that almost always in a district this small involves discussing individual people's positions, so it's not something we're gonna do right now. It's more of an executive session thing. Yep. You guys have any more thoughts? Okay.
Mrs. Brunbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Motion passed 4-0.
All right, 5, other special reports, A, MUEA.
Yeah, so I know that this past summer, the district worked really hard to get ready for changes that was going to take place this school year. During the summer, many teachers also started to prepare for changes that would take place. Starting in September, the association started to do a survey. 2/3 of our membership was able to respond. During the summer, a total of 61 unpaid professional development opportunities took place amongst the 2/3 of our membership. Now, most of these opportunities were free, but some did have a cost attached. For example, gasoline, parking, etc. When looking at the 61 unpaid professional development opportunities, it was roughly 795 hours of professional development. Many teachers came in early to get their rooms ready. Of our respondents, there was 1,106 approximately unpaid hours to get the classroom ready for the new school year. This was an average of 30 hours per respondent. Also getting ready for the school year for the classroom, looking at the number of respondents, we asked them, how much money did you personally spend out of your own pocket to get your classroom ready just for the school year? So this was just for the beginning of the school year. It doesn't count anything else that is purchased. And that total was $8,128. And that's just from looking at the beginning when the school year started. That's not looking at extra hours that teachers did since the school year started, or things that teachers did at home. All of these things, the working hours to get the classroom ready were done in the district in the classroom. So a lot was done by teachers before the school year started to get ready for the new year and the changes. I do know if you're looking at that the one schedule, it is quite a burden on elementary teachers. And I do have some elementary teachers here, so I don't live in an elementary world. But I think that students are in the building a half an hour more, which deals with trying to supervise those students. And I know that that takes a lot of time with the elementary teachers, having to supervise those students, know where those students are. In particular, when they come in the morning, you could have elementary students, but you could also have middle school and high school students coming in on the elementary end, and then also trying to usher those students down at the end of the school day. Also, high school and middle school high school and middle school students go through to the elementary if there are elementary students to pick up. And so those elementary teachers are also dealing with not just their students, but also middle schoolers and high schoolers at dismissal as well. So that is a change to their routine. I do know that. Did I miss anything else from the education for the change in schedule? And I don't know maybe what coaches think. I know that starting a half an hour earlier makes it difficult at the end of 3 o'clock. If you're going to have a practice or you need to leave for an event. I haven't had time to speak to coaches to see how that has impacted coaching times, practice times, or their ability or inability to get to the buses and get on time and such as that. That's another one to think about.
It's definitely affected getting buses. I know that. Having someone available to take them.
Especially if you have a competition further away, and then they maybe have to leave earlier in the day.
Thank you. B, OAP, SE.
I don't think we have anybody here.
Okay.
Thank you.
6, agenda confirmation, additions and deletions to agenda, none. B, recommend approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes. 7, old business, don't believe we have any. 8, new business. A, memorandum of understanding, science of reading stipend. Recommend approval of memorandum of understanding with the Milton-Union Education Association for the purpose of paying science of reading stipends mandated by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. These payments will be reimbursed by the DEW. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Motion passed 4-0.
B, tuition revised. Recommend revision of resolution 2024-212, accepting the state-determined 2024-25 in-state student tuition rate for the Milton-Union exempted village schools at $5,739.64 per year.
So moved.
Second.
I had a question.
Mhm.
Is this, if someone was not eligible to open enroll but wanted to come here, what they would have to write a check for?
This would be, we haven't had anybody
Maybe anybody like,
utilize this.
Is that what it is, though?
I don't know the answer to that. I was focused on.
I think it is, but I just wanted.
Let me double check on it. I'll let you know. What had happened in the last meeting, we forgot to change the 24-25. It said 23-24, so I apologize. I didn't catch that. Okay. Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
4-0.
C, vending machines. Recommend approval of the D&L vending partnership contract to provide machines throughout the district.
So moved.
Second.
Did they take all the old ones?
They have not, but we are going to move them. We're going to move forward and get them out of our way so that we can provide again.
You would think they would come get them.
Yeah, I mean, it took them 2 years before they came and took their stuff, decided they were gonna take their product, so. We're gonna move them, have something in the code with them being very large.
So this is a different company, right?
Yes, this is a local vendor and they have no affiliation with
Okay.
Coke or Pepsi, so. They're going going to be able to provide us with various options. It's also going to provide healthy snacks as well, so it won't just be drinks.
And how many are they putting?
So to start, they're going to do 2. They're going to have one in the middle school staff lounge, and then they will have one in the athletic area. And then we will progress from there. And then there is no cost to the district as far as service, filling, the machines themselves. It's all at the expense of the vendor. And then they've agreed to share 10% of their revenue with the district of what they make each month. So we felt it was best for the both of us. Charging a rent fee, they may not make as much as their rent fee would be. So we felt that, the 10% profit share would be the best route to go.
Sounds good.
It would just be something to, the newest addition obviously would be to the athletic area. Being able to give not only our staff, but our students an opportunity at snacks. It would be after school, so, whether they have an extracurricular event or, they're hungry at the end of the day, they have options for something to drink or to snack on. We would have them, that one would be turned off during the day so that, obviously it wasn't taking away from the cafeteria at lunchtime.
Okay. Roll call.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes. D, transfer, recommend approval of the following transfers. Transfer $123.83 from General Fund 001 to Food Service 006 for the purpose of debt that is deemed uncollectible from students and/or staff that are no longer in the district. Transfer $750,000 from the Permanent Improvement Fund to the Debt Services Fund 002.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Motion passed 4-0.
E, donations. Recommend accepting the following donations. $2,000 donated to the Angel Fund from VFW Post 8211. $150 gift card donated for Lakeshore Learning from the Ohio Department of Health.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes.
Motion passed 4-0.
F, consent calendar. Recommend approval of all matters listed under the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes. 9, other authorizations, resolutions, etc. A, BPA state contest. Recommend approval of the Milton-Union BPA attending the BPA state competition in Columbus, Ohio, March 10th through March 11th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Also, to let the public know that the school does not pay for this. This is something that the BPA, right, pays for out of their funds or donations from
Correct.
local businesses.
Yep.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkleman?
Yes. B, BPA National Convention. Recommend approval of the Milton-Union BPA attending the BPA National Convention in Orlando, Florida, May 7th through May 11th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Brumbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Kim Parsons?
Yes.
Dr. Hinkle?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right, 10 board reports, legislative and student achievement. On the legislative side, this State Bill 168 passed and went into effect. I had trouble figuring out how much that really impacts us. The education deregulation bill seemed like it's maybe trying to make it easier for teacher licensure to be obtained.
Well, I have not been following that, but in our work with the ESC and meeting with local representatives, that's one of the things that we find common ground on, is being able to make the licensure process far easier for, substitute teachers and the alternative pathway, and that's something that all the superintendents can get behind, and again, that seems like something our representatives are willing to help us out with, so.
B, policy update.
Nothing at this time.
We, so you know that our Neola representative is Norm Burkhart, and I just heard from him. And usually we're kind of at the end of his tour around Ohio. He finishes up, usually we're towards the bottom of his concert list. So I know that information came from Neola very late to him. So it seems like it's all much later than it's been compared to maybe previous fall updates. We might not get through it all in time for the November board meeting and the first reading. It might carry over until after the beginning of the calendar year. So we'll see.
Okay.
Brad, with those updates, will Norm, show in red with a line through it, like what there was and then
Correct.
the new? So-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you folks, I think you've all gotten pretty good at logging into board docs. That's the easiest way to see what's been changed. And as far as he's concerned, once the board acts on these changes after the first reading, the second reading, that's the easiest way for him to know, what the board has actually acted on to then do the updates in the interface. So yeah, that's exactly what you'll see. And those PDFs will attach in the board agenda when it's the first and second readings.
Okay. C, building and transportation.
Not so much on the building front, I think the transportation front, and I know Curtis and I have talked and worked. I wanted to get for the board kind of a rough estimate of what, if we're fortunate enough for this levy to pass, and wanted to bring back high school busing, and what would be the cost and how it would affect projections. So Curtis has helped. We're getting there. We're pretty close as far as the cost that it would take, and he also ran. Curtis can talk about it, but he did an audit on current bus load with the routes. So, and the reason for that is to have an idea of how many new drivers we need to add to bring back high school busing, and then drill down on that to get the cost to then put into the forecast numbers to make sure that the room is there. So,
How many sub-bus drivers do we have currently?
We currently have two. One of those is, gracious as she is also a full-time employee here. So
Okay.
she is willing to pick up extra time to help get kids places. We are in the process of training and hiring some new bus drivers. We have some.
How many?
I believe we have two that want permanent employment, and we have two that want to be substitute employment.
And did we need 4 more permanent?
Correct. And we're still looking for
How long's the training process usually?
2. It depends on where you're at. If you're starting from ground zero, it's several months. If you are, you have your commercial driver's license, then you have to have the proper permits for that commercial driver's license. And then you have all that, that's where you're at with your training. Some need a refresher course. Some may be ready to go. The ones that are ready to go are very hard to find. They're probably already working in another district. But,
So are they still doing double routes? Some.
not this week.
Okay.
But probably by the end of the week, we are, yes. 'Cause we have another driver that leaves us on Wednesday for another district.
For another district?
And he was gracious enough. Today was supposed to be his last day, and he was staying through Wednesday, so we have another driver who's on vacation till Wednesday. So he was nice enough to say, well, I'll stay till Wednesday. So, Jodelle's done a good job of, helping us manage and navigate, the numbers game of where we can put kids and, how we can get kids to and from school in a timely, safe manner. So, this past week, we had to split up another bus. It was just for a week though. But, then we had a group of kids here that, we get picked up about, 15, 20 minutes later, after the bus was able to drop some kids off and then come back and pick them up to fit them on the bus. But that was last week. This week, right now, we're making it work.
Any more?
You really need bus drivers. Bad.
All right. Do we have anything from MVCTC?
We don't, but, there had been some questions about the sophomore pilot program that we do have 2 or 3 kids that are enrolled in, how that information went out to parents and families, and, maybe how that was a consideration in spring scheduling for kids. I think that's probably moved forward how, I don't want to put words in the Career Tech Center's mouth, but that's probably moved forward as other new programs for the Career Center has. With, the first year they expect lower numbers, and then each year after that they expect to grow it. I think maybe the best thing to do, we've done this, I think, one other time. Dr. Weldy has come to a board meeting just to talk through what's new at MVCTC. He's willing to do that for all his partner schools. I'll have to get on his list because he's a very busy guy. He has a full calendar, but I can invite him to a board meeting sometime to make a presentation if you would like.
I think that would be good. If we can get on his list.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He'll make time for us. He's just, he's busy.
All right. E, Milton-Union Education Foundation.
We will be meeting this Thursday and reviewing the classroom grant applications and then decide what applicants are getting the grants.
Okay.
So, big week for that.
All right. F, Audit and Finance. I think probably discussed finance a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Facility Complex. I know Ben's not here. Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, not a whole lot's changed. We're hopefully getting ready to stop mowing grass for.
Your stair treads are in.
Yes, yeah, we did.
They look good.
Our stair treads, they did that so fast. They did it a lot faster than what they had originally thought. Had a crew come in after 3:30 and they would work here till midnight. They would rip up the old steps and lay the new. We did end up 1 box short of steps. So steps that aren't finished yet, which was a box of stair treads. So it's probably gonna be maybe another 2 weeks, because those were custom made, the colors were custom made, but, they look good. They should hold up. Their durability is there, so. They thought that this was gonna take several months to do, and they got it done in a matter of a week.
Yeah, my daughter approves.
Yeah.
She told me so.
No, that's good, that's good.
Why did
She
they
really
take
liked 'em.
several months?
Well, they weren't sure how the demo would go, because the process of removing the steps, removing the old adhesive, cleaning that area to prepare new adhesive. From what I was told, there was a lack of adhesive, so it was a bit easier to prep, so to speak. They just weren't sure what they were gonna get into. They weren't sure if they could do a set of steps in a couple days, or if they would be able to get, a set done a night. So I think once they got into it, they realized that it was gonna go much quicker than anticipated. So hopefully in a couple weeks, they're completely finished, but all high school, all middle school, and then just 9 steps in the elementary need to be finished.
Okay. All right, 11, information and discussion items.
I just want to go back to the tuition rate just real quick. Dr. Ritchie found it. Per Ohio Revised Code, it provides that a Board of Education may admit to the schools of the district that is not required to admit if tuition is paid by the child. So yes.
Lucky guess.
You got me?
B, board announcements, upcoming meetings. Next regular board meeting is Monday, November 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Media Center. 13, executive session. Recommend approval to adjourn to executive session for purposes authorized under BOE Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22G1 to consider appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee or official in ORC 121.22G5 for a matter required to be kept confidential by federal law or rules and state statutes. Invitees will be Dr. Ritchie.
Mr. Brackman, Mrs. Hartley, Mrs. Leo.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Rudolph?
Yes.
Mr. Kress?
Yes.
Mrs. Van Parsons?
Yes.
Dr. Kinkelman?
Yes. All right. Thank you.